here in Gastonia, North Carolina. If you've never joined us before, you can join us in person at 1508 Hargrove Avenue, or you can keep following us online. You can share this link. You can do all kinds of things. Just enjoy the presence of God with us tonight is what we're wanting you to do. Also, if you want to join in the comments, if you have questions, we may not get to answer them on stream, but we may be able to answer them later. And if I see it, I may answer it on stream, so pop a question in there if you want to. But we're joined by some in person tonight, and I'm thankful for all of you that are here with me in person. I want to get back into where we were Sunday. Sunday I talked a lot Sunday, hopefully not too much, but we talked about the sound, and specifically talked about the sound of the life of God, and I really want to kick off tonight by specifying the sound, what the sound is, because I went back and listened to a little bit, and I'm like, I probably need to do a little bit of homework there for everybody. So what do you mean when you talk about the sound? So tonight we're going to call this Singing a Different Tune. Sunday was This is the Sound. And all this, I guess you'd say, is probably a series, if you will, that goes with the full song message. So if you want to look up some stuff, look up the full song message, look up Sunday, that's This is the Sound, and then tonight, Singing a Different Tune. But what is that sound? Well, Francois Dutoit translates Ephesians 4, verse 16, like this. From him, that's Jesus, flows the original composition and detail of our design. Like words entwined in poetry, like a conductor of music. They connect layer upon layer to complete the harmony, following the rhythm of his thoughts, like footprints. Meanwhile, the body thrives and pulsates with the energy of love. Each individual expression finds its complete measure there. So when I say this is the song, or what's the song, or what is the sound, I'm talking about the song of Jesus. The song that is the reason you're in existence. It's the Logos of God. And sometimes you hear it and you feel it like in a grandiose moment. Maybe it's the birth of a child. Maybe it's the marriage, getting married. There's just this moment or this feeling you get when you're in a moment that's transcending this normal chronos time, and you're like, man, this feels really, really, really special. Well, that's the sound I'm talking about. That's the music. That's the gospel. That's what he says when it says from Jesus flows the original composition. We're talking about your original music, your original composition. You are the original composition. And the detail of your design, you're like words that are entwined with poetry. And Jesus is like this conductor of music. That word that he translates there is epicuragio. They connect layer upon layer. That's us. We connect layer upon layer to complete the harmony, following the rhythm of his thoughts like footprints. That's beautiful, Francois. Meanwhile, the body thrives and pulsates with energy of love. Each individual expression finds its complete measure there. Measure where? In love. That's where we find our complete expression. That's where we find our full measure, if you're talking musically, in love. And it's in those moments that I mentioned, the birth of a child, the marriage, those are love moments, right? Well, that's the gospel. That's when your life becomes love. Your whole life becomes these love moments. And we get caught up in the mundane, the chronos time, where we're just going to work, we're just doing this, we're just doing that. But then when you see for the first time, when you see again, like your eyes have been enlightened by the gospel, your eyes have been opened to the truth, transformed, we're going to get here in a minute, transformed by the renewing of your mind, which is the renovation of your mind. So it's singing a different tune. But the different tune that you're singing is the original tune. That's why you go, I've been here before. I've done this before. It's that weird, what's the word I'm looking for? Deja vu. It's almost like deja vu. It's like, man, I've dreamt this before. I've been here before. No, you this is where you're from. This is the moment you're feeling, the love that you're feeling. That's where you're from. I mean, that's why you're oozing the love of God, because you've been here forever. Like, we think of God like, I remember when my mom told me when I was little, like, God's always been. And that just like totally tripped me out. Like, how do I even think about that? Well, And I was thinking about this the other day. Jesus said, I'm the vine and you are the branches, and my Father's the husbandman, right? That's John 15. I'm the vine and you are the branches, and my Father's the husbandman. Well, that's like, okay, so think with me just a minute here. If we're the vine, or if he's the vine and we're the branches, that's a tangible thing. But the husbandman is something altogether different, right? Like that's a human being going to a vine. So if you will, if Jesus is the vine, if he's the Logos, and we're the branches, then that's the earth and all the fullness thereof. And God's the husbandman. So he's outside of the vine and outside of the branches, yet he's all in one, right? But God is, if he's the husbandman, it's almost like that's a picture of God standing outside of time and space. And we're in time and in space and on this rock and in this flesh. We're the branches on the vine that is Christ. And God, our Abba, is the husbandman that's plucking and doing all the things that you do with the grapevine, right? And it's just this, and that's what we're talking about when we talk about the original composition. We're getting back to where you see, oh my God, I am a vine, I am a branch on the vine that is Christ, and my daddy is God, and he's the husbandman. And all this stuff that's happening in my life is starting to make sense. If we'll back up a couple verses in Ephesians here with Francois, verse 14 says, the most dangerous life you can live is an ignorant one. You're left like an infant on a ship, out of control in the waves and the winds of the storms of life. Imagine that image. A child, a lonely child on a boat by himself in the ocean, helpless. That's what Francois is saying. That's what Jesus is saying as Francois translates here in Ephesians 4. I say Jesus. That's what Paul's saying. It's what Jesus is saying through Paul. But verse 14, it says, the most dangerous life you can live is an ignorant one. Ignorant of what? The song, the music, the dance. If you're ignorant, you're left like an infant on a ship, out of control in the waves and the winds of the storms of life. The fall of the dice dictates while the deceptive teachings of men and their distracting tricks entertain. You're living life by the roll of the dice that way. But verse 15 says, love gives truth its voice. Love, remember what we just talked about a minute ago. Love is the complete measure. It's the fullness. It's the life. It's the ooey gooey love life of Jesus, man. That's the love feast. So this love gives truth its voice. The conversation that truth inspires creates the atmosphere. Here we are, the branches, right? The husbandman, the vine, the atmosphere for what? Wherein growth is both spontaneous and inevitable. A good gardener will tell you, we need some rain right now, right? A good gardener around here, they're worried about their crops. Why are they worried about their crops? Because the atmosphere is not right now. It's not a good atmosphere to grow lush and plentiful right now. So a good farmer is having to do what? He's having to dig down deeper. Man, I feel Jesus when I say that. So a good farmer has to dig down deeper and tap into water himself. When the water's not coming from above, a good farmer digs down deep in those moments and says, I will get it from the wells. I'll get it from the rivers that run below the surface. I'll dig deeper because I can't get what I need on the surface. I can't see the rain right now. I don't feel God right now. I don't feel him in this moment. It's a dry time. But as we talked about Sunday, Jeremiah says what? Even in the drought, the tree that is planted by the rivers of living water, it doesn't even fear when heat comes because its roots tap into that water. And even in all times, at all times, we're connected. Even when you don't feel it, you just got to go deeper. You got to tap in deeper. Deeper than you've ever been before. I feel God say that tonight. Deeper than you've ever been before. You haven't went deep enough. Deep enough into the original composition of who you are. Deep enough into the original composition that tells you, Jeff, I love you, man. There's nothing that can happen. There's nothing that can separate me from the love of God, right? There's nothing. No principalities, no powers, nothing. Dig deeper. A good farmer digs deeper to get the water to feed his crops, to keep them hydrated. But it keeps on going here, and it says that atmosphere, that's an atmosphere where growth is spontaneous and inevitable. When? When love gives truth its voice. The whole person is addressed in Christ, who is the head of the body. He is the conclusion of God's communication with mankind. Okay, so if we're singing a different tune, we're talking about the song. I've did a little bit of background on what is that song. So now let me ask you this. What's the most famous song that you've ever heard, and first time you heard it, you probably hated it? Everybody's got one. Chris and I were talking about this before. I guess if you would go modern terms for me, it would probably be the Miley Cyrus Flowers song. I don't know if you've heard that, but it's the first time I ever heard it. It was I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand. And the first time I heard that, I was like, ugh, that's terrible. I don't like it. And then like a week later, I was going around saying, I can buy myself flowers, right? And then I was thinking, it's like, okay, so Miley Cyrus, then my mind went to Dolly Parton, right? Because that's like her godmother or whatever. So Dolly Parton, I imagine when she first came out with that song, Jolene, there was probably somebody just like me back then going, that song's terrible. Jolene, Jolene, Jolene. I hate that. I hate that. I could imagine somebody listening to that on the radio the first time being like, that's a terrible song. I hope they never play that again. And then like a week later, they're going, Jolene, 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 Jolene. And it's like, that's what music does. Think about, I think about another, what was the other one? Oh, yeah, Steve Miller Band. Do, 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 living in the USA. And I can imagine somebody hearing that for the first time being like, wow, that's original. Do, 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 do. Right? I mean, they really worked hard on this one. This is a terrible song. And then like a week later, they're going, do, 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 and the whole nation's singing it, right? And then this is my last one, the last song. But you have to talk about Creedence Clearwater Revival and their do, do, do songs like do, 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 walking out or looking out my back door. And everybody's like, I just imagine when somebody heard that for the first time, they were probably feeling the same thing. Like, my goodness, how silly of a song is that? Could they not think of anything better than looking out their back door? And then like a week later, they're like, do, 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 looking out my back door. And that's the power of the song, man. Because these artists, they're not just tapping into money. They're not just tapping into creativity. They're tapping into the original composition. Steve Miller Band, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Miley Cyrus, Dolly Parton, all of them, all these artists, they're tapping into the original composition. And when they tap into that original composition, they're writing something from their heart, and that song bears witness with you and resonates within you, and before you know it, you're singing, do, 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 I'm living in the USA, right? So I say all that to say this. How many relationships have been broken? How much growth has been stunted because we were just not in love with the song when we first heard it? How many churches have split over music? I know we're talking about music, but I'm talking about something more than music. How many people have we excommunicated because we just didn't quite understand or listen to their song more than once? How many times have we ended something prematurely because we just didn't mash play again? Because these songs wouldn't have been number one hits if the radio stations would have thought that. The radio stations could have not played them. But there was a reason the radio stations played them. The radio stations played them because they knew that you would eventually sing the song. And I think that's what Jesus has given us the opportunity to do with people. I'm going to keep throwing people out there, and they're finally going to learn how to love these people. Because we got it wrong for a long time as the church in the West. It's not quite our tempo. It's not our song. We're not in love with the song. That's not really our flavor. That's not really the way we do things. Well, that's a problem. Because Jesus was always singing a different tune. Every time. When they thought they had him figured out, he was singing a different tune. When they thought they figured out the people that he liked to hang out with, he was singing a different tune. Then he winds up at a well in Samaria with some girl. It's like, what are you doing? Oh, you guys need to learn this song. The song that's her heart. You need to learn her song. Because I'm not always going to be here physically showing you how to do this. And that's why I'm like over the moon tonight, because I feel like he's given us the opportunity to learn the song right now in 2024. Do you know how bad we need to learn it? You know how bad we need to reach out to these people and say, hey, I know that we might have sold you out, or we might have cast you out, or somebody might have hurt you a long time ago, but please forgive them. Let me bear that burden for all that they've done to you, and give me another opportunity to hear your song. Because I think I'm going to like it. Because I think Jesus, or God says what? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him. Now that whosoever, that's a lot of different music. That's a lot of different styles. It's a lot of different walks of life. It's a lot of different viewpoints. There's a lot of difference, right? But whosoever's whosoever. All means all, right? And that's all means. So when we're singing a different tune, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Conflict brings transformation. Confrontation is art. That's what Rick Rubin says anyway. If it's a conflict, if it's confrontation, there will be growth. That's just, you go back to the vine. Go back to the vine. A good vine, a good husbandman is going to do what? He's going to prune. And that is conflict. That is confrontation. That's shears hitting plants. So that's the knife cutting, right? And we're like, man, that's tough. Yeah, it's tough, but we're growing. We're going somewhere. And it may be awkward. It may be weird, but we're getting there. That's right. That's right. All right, so turn to Romans 12:2. And let's dig into the transformation here. Romans 12:2, if you're following along at home. Yes, this is going to be fun. All right. Bearing witness up in here. Romans 12:2, and be not conformed. Conformed. If you look up that word conformed, I'm not going to try and pronounce the Greek here, but I'm going to tell you what the Greek means. The Greek means conform to the same pattern, conform to, fashion self according to think along the same pattern, to sing the same song. That's why, if you're always around people that are saying the same thing that you're always saying, then that is called what? That is called bias. And if you're, that's why in a multitude of counselors, there's wisdom, right? There's wisdom in a multitude of counselors, right? Why is there wisdom in a multitude of counselors? Because not everybody's saying the same thing. There's somebody at the table that's wise, like Pastor Curtis Wilson back there, that'll say, boys, you shouldn't do that because I've done that before. And I can save you a lot of time and effort if you don't do this. But try this. That's why a multitude of counselors is a wonderful thing. That's why everybody's singing the same song, not too good. Different styles, different flavors. That's what we need. Because conforming to the same pattern is what he's talking about here in Romans 12. Be not conformed. Don't sing the same song as everybody else. But be transformed. That word transformed is metamorpho. By the renewing, and this is where it gets fun, renewing is anakainos, which is renovation. How many has renovated their house before? Just about anybody that's lived anywhere over 5 years, right? Renovation means what? We're getting out of it's going to look different. It's going to look way different, right? You go to somebody's house like, I've just renovated, you should come check it out. And you walk into them and they're like different houses. Oh my God, I love what you've done. What happened? They had a new idea. They saw a new style. They had a new feeling. They wanted a room to speak a different thing. So they actually did what the husbandman does. They went in there with sledgehammers and paint and ripped up carpet and ripped up hardwoods and ripped up laminate and ripped up tiling and tore down showers and replumbed, and before you know it, we got a big mess. And in the mess, renovation's not fun. And in the mess, loving people is hard and challenging and can be difficult for all of us, especially if they're singing a different song. But in that renovation, it's the gift of God to all of us. It's the confrontation that brings forth growth. It's creating the atmosphere for change. So in that renovation, we all know what? We're building something special. We're building something special, and we're all making concessions, and we're all kind of making a sacrifice here. We're reasoning together. Come on, Old Testament, where are we at? Come, let us reason together. What does that mean? That means you're going to have to sacrifice some, and I'll sacrifice some, and we'll meet in the middle beneath that old Georgia pine, right? That's a good song too, right? I mean, that's a great song because he's saying the exact same thing. All right, so the renovation, transformed by the renovation of your mind. So the mind there, I think this is good. The mind there means the intellect, meaning understanding. So you're transformed by the renovation of your understanding, not your literal brain, but you're transformed by the renovation of your biases, of your thought patterns, of the songs that you're singing. And before you know it, you're singing a new tune. And it says, why do we do that? We're transformed by the renewing of our mind for what? That we may prove. Prove. What's everybody looking for? Proof. The proof's in the pudding. You know? Everybody's like, hey, what's different about y'all? I don't know. We're just loving. We're just loving. I mean, why are you happy all the time? I don't know. I've just been loved. I've been loved. I mean, do you not ever have a bad day? Yeah, I have a bad day sometimes, but people like you help me get through it. Those kinds of encouraging words change people's lives. And we're transformed by the renewing of our mind. Let's keep going in the verse. I want to keep going. I know I'm getting off subject here just a little bit. That we may prove what is that good. Good is a very profound definition. Good means good. They did a really good job with good. Good means good. Prove what is good and acceptable. Now, acceptable there means fully agreeable. Fully agreeable and perfect. Perfect there is not a good translation for our modern word for perfect. Perfect means complete. So we're going to prove what is good, well-pleasing, fully agreeable, and complete. So you're going to prove all that by singing a different tune, being transformed by the renovation of your mind so you can prove what is that good, reasonable, well-pleasing, fully agreeable, complete will of God. And that, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So Teresa's helping us here. She said that word for help me out. Say it again. Say it again. So that word for will means determined. Oh, that's good, Teresa. I like that. That's good. So yeah. So that word for will there is determined, and that's our sister Teresa Williams, or not Williams. I'm sorry, Mobley. It's our sister. It's same difference. We're all just a big love party over here. We're loving each other, giving each other the ability to speak up, giving each other the floor. They're not preferring one above the other. I would prefer it be her up here right now. And you know what she's doing? She's adding it right back. She's loving it right back. And that's what's beautiful about coming to the table together and reasoning together and being in a multitude of counselors. You're going to get interpretation. You're going to get help and refuge and security from all those that are supporting you in this family. So she said it's the determined will of God, right? So Jesus is determined what? To prove what is good and acceptable and pleasing for you at home. To prove to you that you are the original composition, no matter what song you're singing, no matter what style you may be. All right, so let's go now to Psalm 19, and I'm going to read that out of the Message translation here, so you can just follow along if you would like to. We're going to go to Psalm 19. Pastor Scott sent this Sunday, and I didn't get to expound upon it much, but it was really, really good. And I want to dig in a little bit more on Psalm 19 here. And Bishop Kello told me after the message, he listened at home, and he's like, you need to dig into Psalm 19 in the Message translation. And he called me again Monday. He texted me Monday. He's like, have you read it yet? And I'm like, not yet, but I will. So we're going to read it now. It's fantastic. It goes right along with everything we're saying. So Psalm 19, verse 1 in the Message says, God's glory is on tour in the skies. God craft on exhibit across the horizon. Madam Day holds classes every morning. Professor Knight lectures each evening. Their words aren't heard. Their voices aren't recorded, but their silence fills the earth. Unspoken truth is spoken everywhere. God makes a huge dome for the sun, a superdome. The morning sun's a new husband, leaping from his honeymoon bed. The day-breaking sun is an athlete racing to the tape. Verse 6 says, that's how God's word vaults across the skies, from sunrise to sunset, melting ice, scorching deserts, warming hearts to faith. But here's the glory right here. Verse 7 says, the revelation of God is whole and pulls our lives together. The signposts of God are clear and point out the right road. The life maps of God are right, showing the way to joy. The directions of God are plain and easy on the eyes. God's reputation is 24-karat gold with a lifetime guarantee. Eugene Peterson, I see what you're doing there. The decisions of God are accurate, and this is my favorite part. The decisions of God are accurate down to the nth degree. The nth degree. You know what that means? He's all about you, even down to the minutia, the details in the minutia of your life, all the way down to what's your favorite color? I mean, that's the questions you ask somebody when you're first in love, right? I remember Kristen a long time ago. We're talking circa 2005. That was the questions I was asking her. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite song? What's your favorite place? What's your favorite type of music? And all those things have changed in all this time. But when you're falling in love, man, you want to know what the other one likes. You want to know what the other one's about. And that's the way God is for us, to the nth degree. And these signposts, these revelations of God, they're clear and they're pointing us in the right direction. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the songs and the signs. I'm gonna try something here. Hopefully this will focus in. But we talk about hearing the music, right? This is the sound. Do you hear the sound? Do you hear the direction of God? Do you hear what He's doing? Do you hear what He's saying? So I'm gonna try this here. Hopefully you can see this at home, but I printed this out. Kristen actually took an Amazon package and made me nice poster cards that like I feel really professional. She did a great job. But if you can see that from home, yeah, Curtis is helping me. Come down, right here. Look at that. All right, right here. That makes sense that I should hold it where my face is. That should be in frame. So this, if you're looking from home, this probably looks like a profile. I see a child looking up to heaven. I can see the outline of a little boy. What made me think of this is my mom, when my brother and I went to the fair when we were really young, we did this thing where we went to this photo booth or something, and it could have been Tweetsie Railroad or somewhere like that. It hung up in my mom's bedroom forever, and I remember it. But they took a picture of our profiles, right, and they printed that out for our parents. So my mom has our profiles of when we were little boys in her bedroom, and that's what I thought about when I seen this. But the reason I'm showing you this is because it's not a profile. This is not a little boy's profile. This is a tree that I see every morning on my way to work. Every single morning. And when I first thought about it, I was like, man, that looks like a little boy's face. Or it looks like a profile. And the first morning I was like, that's pretty neat. And I drove by it again. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. And then I drove by it again. And now I've drove by it, I don't know, 20 or 30 times. And God has convinced me that this tree's for me. I'm seeing it. I hear it. What am I hearing? The sound, the original composition. What's the message? Have the eyes and the faith of a child, and keep your eyes above. Think on things that are pure. Think on things that are heavenly. Think on these things. That's what the Bible says. Don't think about things that are going to keep you in a negative spiral. Lift your eyes into the hills, from whence cometh my help. Follow the children. And this little guy's leading me, yet he's a tree. And we're like, God can't do that. God's not that much involved, is He? Absolutely, 1,000,000% He is. This tree's speaking to me. I saw something else that speaks to me. And this is a little goofy. This is for all my goofy friends. This is a squirrel. Now, I didn't see this squirrel. I saw this online, but I thought I should show you guys this too. So this is a squirrel smelling a flower. Literally, smelling a flower. Think about this. Now, that squirrel took the time to smell the flowers. And we're thinking, what is a squirrel? A squirrel's busy doing squirrel things, right? He's trying to get ready for winter, and everything in that squirrel's life is worry, worry, worry. I got to get more, got to get more, got to get more, got to get more, got to get. And here's the proof that they're doing better than we are in a lot of ways. They're taking time to stop and smell the roses. They're taking time to stop and smell the flowers. That's Curtis Wilson's motto, right? So you'll have time to stop and smell the roses, right? So that's what I'm telling you to do tonight. That's a real picture. That's a real picture of a real squirrel stopping and smelling a flower, right? And we're like, man, could it really be everything? Yes, because creation is groaning and travailing for the manifestation of the sons of God. Albert Einstein, I talked about Albert Einstein a while back in a message, but Albert Einstein in his theory of relativity says that the universe, in layman terms, it says that the universe remembers. And scientists have proven this phenomenally, repeatedly, that matter has memory. So matter has memory, which means that there's a reason that tree looks like that. There's a reason that that squirrel's doing that. There's a reason that the birds are singing an hour before sunrise. It's because matter has memory and everything matters. If our bishop has taught us anything, he's taught us that everything matters. Everything matters. And if everything matters to you, you start paying attention to the details, to the intricate details of life. And then before you know it, it's like, well, I'm paying this much attention. And you realize what? God's paying that much attention to me. Because Jesus said what? You know, God knows every single sparrow. He knows when a sparrow falls out of the sky. He knows how many hairs upon your head. If he cares about sparrows, think about how much he cares about you. And King James is a little rough there, if you being evil know how to give good gifts, think about the gifts that your Father would give you. If you know to give your son, you don't give your son a serpent or a stone when he's hungry. No. You give him fish. You give him something to eat. Then ask whatever you ask in my name, and my Father will give it unto you. I'm telling you, friends, if we start looking at the world like this, if we start looking at the world like, I'm thinking all this stuff is connected, I'm thinking all this stuff matters, I'm thinking my life is not insignificant, then you start hearing that faint whistle, that faint bell, that faint echo, and you start, and it gets louder and louder and louder and louder and louder, and before you know it, everybody's looking at you like you're crazy, and it's okay because you're sent there for them. You're sent there for them. I told you that Sunday, that stuck with me so much, and it was in the moment that I said it, but believe for the crazy. Don't believe for the just getting by. I feel God in every fiber of my being when I say that. The gospel's not a getting by gospel. The gospel's a crazy gospel. Believe for the crazy. Don't believe for just getting by. Don't believe for things just to get a little bit better. Believe for things to be crazy good. Believe for a miracle. Jesus told his disciples, if you could, we're going to get there, I'm getting ahead of myself, but he said, if you could just see it, man, this field is white. So you need to pray that God sends laborers to this harvest. You need to pray that God sends somebody that pays attention to the details. And that's what we're here to do. It's up to you. It's up to me and you to see the people that are suffering, to see the people that need just a word from you. Maybe it could be just as simple as you saying, hey, you're not yourself today. What's going on? And when you do that, you tell them what? I care about you. Now, I may not care in the way that you think I care. I may not care in the way that, and that's kind of went opposite there. But you think, oh man, they can't care that much. What do they do? What if somebody's checking on you because they genuinely care? I got news for you. This world is busy. We all got stuff to do. So if you got somebody checking in on you, they're checking in on you because they love you. They're checking in on you because they want you to get better. They're checking in on you because they want what's best for you. So don't think that those people are just patronizing you. Don't think that they're just trying to make you feel like you're wanted or make you feel. No, those people are sent by God. They're messengers from God checking on you. So if somebody's calling you saying, I'm just seeing how you're feeling, that's an angel, man. That's a messenger of God in your life. And it's God himself saying, hey, you matter. You're not hearing me. It may be dry on the surface, but I'm sending you water from a deeper place, man. I'm sending you water from a deeper place. It may be dry in your life, but there's somebody that's tapped in. There's somebody that's tapped in deep, and I'm going to send them to you to check on you. And it may be in the form of just somebody saying, I hope you're doing okay today. You're acting a little bit different today. How can I help you today? Can I go to the grocery store for you today? Let me get that door for you, ma'am. Oh, thank you, son. No problem. How are you today? I'm doing good. I didn't know people were this nice anymore. Oh, we're still nice because God's still alive. God's still in love with us. God still wants to make us prosper. So why should we not want the whole world to prosper? Why can't we learn a different tune? Why can't we sing a different tune? I know I'm rambling a little bit, man, but I feel Jesus on this stuff tonight. Ray Hughes is the one that said that, and I've talked about Ray Hughes Sunday. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of that, but Ray Hughes said that, you know, he was the one that came up with them, didn't come up with it, but he talked about on his podcast that matter has memory, and he's reaffirming what these scientists are discovering. Let's turn to Luke chapter 19. Luke chapter 19, verse 28. Luke chapter 19, verse 28. So this is we're going to jump back into a little bit of the folk song stuff here, the triumphal entry material. And when he had thus spoken, he went before ascending up to Jerusalem. And it came to pass, when he was come nigh to Bethpage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, called the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples, saying, Go ye into the village over against you, in which at your entering you shall find a colt tied, whereon yet never man sat. Loose him and bring him hither. So he's telling his disciples, go get the colt, go get the donkey for me to ride in on. Verse 31, I love this. And if any man ask you, why do you loose him? Just say unto him, because the Lord has need of him. I love it so much because it doesn't make sense for us. Like, hey, go get Bobby's bike over there. And if Bobby asks you why you're getting your bike, just tell him that God needs it. It's like, Bobby's going to punch me in the face. No. Bobby's not, because you're going to tell him the same composite. You're going to sing the same tune that Bobby's singing. When Jesus told them, go tell them that I have need of that donkey, and when you tell them that the Lord needs this donkey, they're going to know the song you're singing. And that's exactly what happened. I feel Jesus all over this man. When they went and got that donkey, I had to imagine. You have to imagine that those disciples were like, "Oh God, we're taking this donkey. We're taking this donkey," and they're taking it loose. And then the guy says, "Hey, where are you going with that?" He said, "The Lord needs it." And that moment, that man heard that tune. And in that moment, that man said, "Take that foal, take that donkey, because I hear the music you're playing. I hear you checking in on me. I hear God visiting me with deeper water. I hear it. Take the foal, take the donkey." Verse 32, and they that were sent there went their way and found it. And this is where that just basically says everything that I just said. Jump to verse 34. The Lord hath need of him. Verse 35, and they brought him to Jesus, and they cast their garments upon the colt, and they set Jesus thereon. And as he went, they spread their clothes in the way. It's not insignificant there that they sat Jesus on the donkey. I haven't talked about this. They sat Jesus on the donkey. That's very, very, very significant. No, a donkey, Jesus could have climbed on a donkey easily. But Jesus isn't going to come in by force. Jesus isn't going to kick your door down. Jesus is going to stand at your door and knock. It's up to you to open the door. It's up to you to put him on the donkey. It's up to you to let him take that seat of authority, that is the seat of childlikeness, that seat of wonder in your life, and say, Jesus, I'll put you on the donkey, and you can reign from my heart. You can reign from me. All right, keep going. Verse 37, and when he was come nigh, even now at the descent of the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of disciples began to rejoice and praise God with a loud voice for all the mighty works that they had seen, saying, Blessed be the King that cometh in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Guess what? It wasn't the tune the Pharisees liked. They were singing a different tune, man. The Pharisees said what? Some of the Pharisees from among the multitude said, Master, rebuke thy disciples. They were singing a different tune. These people were singing Jolene for the first time, man. They were singing the Miley Cyrus song for the first time. They were singing Doot, 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 looking out my back door. And the Pharisees didn't like that song. They were like, I don't like this song. Jesus, I don't like this song. They're saying glory in the highest. They're saying Hosanna. They're saying all these, rebuke them, Jesus, rebuke them. Stop them. This is not right. This is not fitting our tune. Do you see where we're going tonight? This is not like we're supposed to be. This is not how we have our structure set up. This is not how we have everything set up. But Jesus, what does Jesus say? Beautifully, beautifully, Jesus says, verse 40, and he answered and said unto them, I tell you that if these would hold their peace, the stones would immediately cry out, because matter has memory, and those stones remember. Those stones remember their original composition. And Jesus said in that moment, boys, if they weren't singing, this whole world would. The squirrels would. The dogs would. The donkey would. The donkey would speak like he did to Balaam again. The snakes would. All these animals would start crying out. All these rocks would cry out. The world would cry out because you're missing it. And that's exactly what he tells in verse 41. And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it. Why did he weep over the city? Saying, if thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, whose day? Their day. They missed their day. Listen to what he's saying. If thou had known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong to who? Unto your peace, unto thy peace. But now they are hid from thine eyes. My goodness, that's why he's weeping, because he's playing this song. He's playing this song for the entire world, and he's here for us, and we're here for the world, and yet the world is not hearing the song. Why is the world not hearing the song? Because the church is not even singing the right tune. Jesus is singing the perfect tune here, and he points at the children in the temple saying, Hosanna in the highest, and he points at the disciples singing Hosanna in the highest, and he says, if they don't sing it, the rocks will cry out. And the people are missing it, and he says, oh my God, and he starts weeping over the city because they're missing their moment. They're missing that it's all for them, and they don't have to toil, they don't have to labor, they don't have to struggle, they don't have to only focus on the fact that there's no rain right now. They can tap into deeper water, but they missed the opportunity. And we don't need to miss that opportunity. We need to seize the day. We need to seize the opportunity. We need to be able to look at creation and say, I see what you're doing, God. Or look at the squirrel and say, I see what's happening there, man. That's not just some squirrel. That's not just some squirrel who's randomly smelling some flower because that's just what squirrels do. No, man. This is a squirrel who has an intellect, and he's thinking to himself, my God, this flower smells good. And we're thinking these squirrels are just running around waiting to be ran over by our tires, right? No. These squirrels are alive. These rocks will cry out if we don't sing the songs of Hosanna, if we don't reach out to those that are in need, and they're going to get reached. They will get reached, but it's our opportunity. And that's why Jesus mourns for the whole city, because they're missing their moment. He says that so clearly. If you had known, even thou at least in this thy day, your day, the things which belong unto your peace, not your struggle. Well, do you think anybody on the face of the earth struggled as much as the Pharisees struggled? That had to be a miserable life. The Pharisees had to live miserable lives. Those men had to be miserable because they were all trying to be something they couldn't be. They were all just proving that the law could only get you so far. That's all that they were doing. So the Pharisees had to be very depressed deep down. And Jesus weeps over the fact that they didn't see it. They couldn't hear a different tune. So they shut him out, and they missed it. We're going to go one more place, and I promise I won't stay there long. Turn to Genesis 37. Genesis 37. Oh, man, I feel Jesus so much. We talked about Kentucky Sunday a lot and the significance of Kentucky. And I'm not going to get too much into that, but this is just for those that watch Sunday. If you didn't know it, with all the connections with Marshall and Kentucky and Ray Hughes and the pen coming from Kentucky and us getting all this revelation in Kentucky, Marshall was, my son, our 2-year-old son Marshall, was born on the day of the Kentucky Derby. So when I say that all this stuff is ringing loud and clear to me, I can't tell you how loud it's ringing. Marshall was born during the Kentucky Derby, okay? And this is, like I said, if this doesn't make sense to you, that's okay. Go back and listen to Sunday. There's a whole lot of Kentucky stuff that's just like God's speaking to me because I'm hearing the original composition, right? I'm hearing that music and I'm following it. It was this kind of music that I followed when I went to a beach. It was this kind of music that I followed when I went to a beach in 2018. And I thought, it can't be God telling me to go to the beach, can it? And I get to the beach, and there's a whole church waiting on me at the very beach I go to baptize me into this truth. I'm telling you, go for crazy. Don't go for just the getting by. Don't ask for just getting by. Ask for the crazy. Ask for the miraculous. Are you in Genesis 37? Good. We're in Genesis 37, verse number 3. Speaking of Marshall. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children. I'm not saying I love Marshall more, but I'm not. Obviously, I love all my children. But there is something so flippin' special about Marshall that I know my kids probably, especially Malachi, who's now a 14-year-old teenager, he's probably like a little bit jealous like Joseph's brothers, because when I get home, Marshall is like over the moon. My wife texted me today while I was at work and said, Marshall, it was like 12 o'clock. Marshall's having a mental breakdown, crying, throwing a tantrum because I'm not there. Crying because his dad's not home. You know how hard it was for me to stay at work today? But I did. But it was all worth it, because when I pulled in that driveway, I saw his little face in that window. I saw that little face in that window, and I saw his whole body illuminate. And he smiled, and I waved as I was coming in, and he starts waving like that. And I come in, and he jumps into my arms. And I'm telling you, that's the gospel. That's the way God loves us. That's how much he loves us, and he's wanting you to respond the way Marshall's responding. Just a goofy, I don't have an ego. I don't have a doubt in this world that my daddy loves me. I don't have a doubt in this world that my daddy's pulling in that driveway to hug me. I don't have a doubt in this world that my daddy wants to be with me. I'm going to jump fully into his arms when he gets home. That's the love of God, man. That's the love God has for you. He loves you that much. And I'll tell you the truth, if my son Malachi would meet me that way, you know what I would do? I would catch him in my arms. But you know what's happened? He's grown up. He's listened to our ways. He's listened to the ways that we've brought him up. We've trained him in the way he should go, right? Or have we? Or have we? Have we desensitized our children to where that was never something they was ever supposed to grow out of? What if that was never supposed to be grown out of? What if we were never supposed to stop meeting our dad at the door like that? What if we were never supposed to stop being ooey gooey? Marshall is all about me. So when I see that Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, I can understand the reference. Not because I love my children differently, but because Marshall loves me hard right now. Like he's a hardcore daddy fan, right? All right, so because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. So he made Joseph his coat of many colors. Why? Probably because Joseph was jumping all over Jacob or Israel. Joseph was probably bouncing up and down saying, my dad's the bomb. Diggity, boys. I don't know. Have y'all seen Dad lately? And all the brothers were like, man, Dad's lame. Dad's just lame. Jacob's lame. And Joseph's like, nah, man, Jacob's the man. Jacob's my dad. I love Dad. And then Jacob senses that. Israel senses that and makes Joseph a coat of many colors. And then what happened? Verse 4. I promise we're not going to read this whole story. But this is good. Verse 4. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him. They hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and it got worse. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and they hated him even more. And he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaves arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood around about and made obeisance to my sheaf. So basically, my sheaf stood up, and your sheaves bowed down to mine. And the brothers were like, this is pretty messed up. This is a pretty messed up dream. They said unto him, shalt thou reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it to his brethren, and said, behold, I have dreamed another dream. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance unto me. Everything bowed down to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him. Remember, Joseph rebuked Jesus in that story we talked about Sunday. His father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee on the earth? To the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. So, all right, so Joseph, we all know the story, right? Brothers get real mad about the dreams, sell him into slavery. It's a big old story after that. He goes to Potiphar's house. Potiphar likes him at first. Then Potiphar's wife's really, really not a nice person. That's the best I can say. And she says that Joseph slept with me, and then Potiphar wants to kill Joseph, has him thrown in prison. Then he goes to prison, and he makes friends with the guard. He makes friends with people in prison. He interprets dreams in prison. Then before you know it, Pharaoh needs a dream interpreted. And then they call Joseph up to interpret Pharaoh's dream, and Pharaoh's dream basically is a prophecy of the famine that was coming. The first 7 years of plentiful, and then the 7 years of famine. So Pharaoh has a dream that, we'll just read over that real quick. Pharaoh had a dream that there came up out of a river. Pharaoh was standing by a river, and he dreamt that there came up out of the river well-favored kine and fat-fleshed cows, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after that out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and the lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke. Then he slept and dreamt again the second time. He beheld 7 ears of corn coming off the same stalk, 7 full ears of corn, and then 7 thin, sorry little measly ears of corn. And then it says that the wind sprung up after the measly, the little sorry little corn stalks growing, the corn cobs growing off the stalks, and the 7 thin ears were devoured, and the 7 rank and by the 7 rank and full ears. So Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. So Pharaoh had these dreams that the cows were coming up out of the water, 7 big cows, 7 unhealthy cows, 7 stalks out of one, 7 ears of corn out of one stalk that were full ears, corn on the cob, slap butter on, they're great. And then 7 ears of corn that were just measly, terrible little ears of corn. And then, of course, the 7 healthy cows overtook the 7 measly cows, the thin cows. And then the 7 ears of corn that were full remained after the 7 measly ears of corn were gone. And I think I've done my best to interpret, to tell you Pharaoh's dreams the best I can in King James there. So Joseph interprets the dream and tells Pharaoh what? That means that there's going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, right? So then, here we go. There's 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. Pharaoh says what? This is awesome. Joseph, you're in control. Gives Joseph the keys to the kingdom. Gives him a ring and a robe. And before you know it, verse 53 of chapter number 41, 7 years of plenteousness was in the land of Egypt, and they were over. Verse 54, and the 7 years of dearth began, which was the 7 years of famine, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all lands. But in all the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto the Egyptians, go unto Joseph, what he saith to you do. He said what? Go to Joseph. Verse 56, and the famine was all over the face of the earth, and Joseph opened up all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt, and all countries came into Egypt to Joseph to buy corn, because that the famine was sore in all lands. But Pharaoh said to the nation of Egypt, and then to the world, what? Go see Joseph. Go see Joseph. Because what did Joseph do? Joseph heard the original composition. Joseph heard the original song, and he had enough courage to say, this is the dream I'm dreaming. And a lot of times we don't say the things we're dreaming because we're afraid of how it'll be received. And in this case, it wasn't received good. But I got news for you. The brothers missed their chance, just like the people at the Mount of Olives, just like the city that Jesus wept over missed their chance, just like we spend a lot of our lives missing our opportunity to hear the music. Joseph gave his brothers the opportunity to say, man, there's something special going on. I feel it in my heart, boys. There's something special going on. And all they saw was ego. All they saw was flesh. All they saw was rank, just like the disciples did when they were arguing about who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom. And Jesus did what? He put a kid on his lap and said, until you can think like this child, you won't even enter in, boys. Joseph gave his brothers the opportunity when he was a kid for them to partake in this music. They passed up on it. Gave his dad the chance too, and his dad rebuked him. Then he gave Potiphar the chance. He gave all of them the chance. And Pharaoh, it took Pharaoh. Pharaoh, it's like the king of the world, man, at that time. And he heard the music. Because Joseph was in tune with the original composition. Joseph believed in himself, probably because Jacob loved Joseph so much. Jacob in his old age, Israel in his old age knew that, man, this is the son of my old age. This is my special boy. I'm going to pour the love on him. And because he poured the love on him, guess what? Joseph thought he was somebody. I got news for you. And I'm sharing this in all humility that I know how to. Greg, our dear brother, Minister Brent Grigg, prophesied over me. It's probably been close to 8 years now. But he prophesied over me, and he told me the exact same thing that Jacob prophesies to Joseph at the end, that Israel prophesies to Joseph. Brent, we were standing right back there at those drums, and he hugged me. and he was crying over me. And he whispered in my ear, and he said, "You're a fruitful bow. You're a fruitful vine that climbs over the wall, and you'll show people another way." Brent prophesied that to me, and I wrote it down, and I believed it. It was the word of the Lord to me from a prophet, from a friend, from somebody that had deep water, from somebody that saw something in me. And he prophesied to me, and he said, "You're a fruitful vine that climbs over the wall, and you're going to show people a better way. You're going to show people another way." I got one more thing to show y'all that's weird. But on my drive home, this is for a year, Highway 182 has been shut down. That's the road. That's the road that I travel home, and I traveled that road home for the better part of, 12 years, 15, maybe even 16 years now. 182 has been shut down. So I've had to go a different route to work. And on this different route, I became fascinated with a silo. And it's a silo with a tree growing out of it. It's on Highway 27. You probably drove by it. But I've watched this tree in all seasons. I've watched it in the winter. I've watched it in the spring. I've watched it now. It's so lush. I stopped and took a picture of it, but that's that tree. That's what it looks like. You can go down Highway 27 on your way to Lincoln, in between Lincoln and the Vale area, and you'll see this tree. It's right near a fire department. But that tree is growing out of that silo, and I've had to look at that thing for over a year because that road that I travel on has been shut down. And I knew early on that God was speaking to me about that tree and about the prophecy that Brent had for me about that, because it's literally a tree coming over the wall. It's the vine going over the wall, right? But then today, I don't know why. I guess because it takes me a lot. It takes me a while, right? Sometimes I'm just not smart. But today, I started thinking about this significance. I've never put this together until today, but I realized what would have most likely been stored in that silo back in the day would have probably been grain. More than likely would have been grain stored in that silo. And then it hit me all over again. It's like the message that we're sharing is not just some good little gospel. It's the hope of the world. Because Pharaoh told the world to go see Joseph because he's the reason we have all this grain. Because that was the plan, right? Joseph said there's going to be 7 years of plenty. God gives Pharaoh the dream, and Joseph takes the 7 years of plenty and stores up all the grain, more than you could even count. And the whole world comes to him because he heard the original composition when he was a kid. And then here you have it. The story plays out. Of course, for those of you that don't know, his brothers come and they have to. It was the fullness of the dream. The brothers come, and he wants to do what? He doesn't want to condemn them. He doesn't want to hold a grudge. He wants to feed them, like he wanted to do from the start. He wanted to let them hear the original composition. And this time, they listen. And this time, they restore. He restores his brothers. It answers Cain's question, am I my brother's keeper? Yes. His brothers ask what? Am I in the place of God? Or was that Joseph that asked? Help me. I'm trying to remember the story. I didn't do enough research today. One of them asked, am I in the place of God? Help me, Curtis. You back here? I think Joseph, I can't remember. Anyway, I should have done more research on that. But the answer to that question is yes. We're in the place of God. We are in the place of God. Because it's up to us to restore our brothers, our sisters, to sing a different tune, to love when it's hard to love, to help when it's inconvenient, to be there when somebody needs you. That's what we're here for. To sing the tune, even if it's not your song. Sing it until it becomes your song. Sing it until you are walking in harmony with your brothers and your sisters. And if they're trying to help you, let them help you. If they're checking in on you, they're checking in on you for a reason. They're checking in on you because they love you. So, I know I've rambled a little bit tonight, but I feel God extremely strong in all this, more so than I probably have in a very long time. So I know that, somewhere in all this madness, there's a message that I'm trying to convey to you, that God loves you. And I hope that's what you've heard tonight. God loves you beyond comprehension. And I know that everybody is in different situations. But whatever situation you're in, I pray that somebody comes to you in the next however amount of time, in the next short, distant future, and relieves your stress and helps you and encourages you and picks you up from a low place. So if there's a person in your life that you know that you should do that for right now, why don't you pick up the phone and call them? Go ahead and close out of this screen. Call the person you need to call and encourage them right now. And love the people that you need to love. Bring them water from a deeper place. Bring them water for their dry ground. Love them like Jesus would, because you are in the place of God. You are your brother's keeper, even when they're singing a different tune. All right, I'm done rambling. Y'all come join us this Sunday. Make sure to like and share and subscribe and follow along with us as we're on this crazy radical love journey and we're listening to what God's saying to us. So say it with me. I love Him because He first loved me. Y'all be blessed.